Alright, ladies and gentlemen, it's Wednesday night, and as most of you know, uh, I won't be. This isn't a live interview. I had scheduling conflicts that came up for this weekend, and I regret not being able to do this interview live, but right now I have Mr. Mike Garcar on Skype with me, and Mr. Garcar is a member of the Ohio College Conservative Federation, and I'm very grateful to have him on Skype with me right now. So, Mr. Garcar, how are you doing tonight, sir?
I'm great, Sam. Thanks for having me on. Really appreciate it.
My pleasure, sir. And I understand you were on Jason's show earlier this week, so.
Yes, we did. We had a very interesting talk about how we can get more college students to become Republican and embrace the conservative ideology. And that's the whole point of me going on a lot of these shows across the country to try to bring to light this problem that faces the GOP.
Well, we all really appreciate you doing this and coming on our programs. So I guess my first question is, how did you get started in politics? Like, what made you decide to become involved?
Really, when I went to college and enrolled at Walsh University, which is a Catholic university in northern Ohio, I signed up for the College Republicans just because really my parents had raised me with the conservative ideology and attended a couple meetings and really kind of fell in love with it and started to become involved, starting to volunteer. And before I knew it, really started playing an active role in not only our chapter, the chapter at Walsh University, but now in my current role as the regional field director for the Ohio College Republican Federation.
I see. Was politics like something that you paid attention to a lot as a kid, in high school, or did it really start when you began college? I'm just curious about that.
No, I mean, I was really not into politics whatsoever. I don't think any more than any other high school kid. I think you paid attention to some of the big events that happened. You watched presidential elections and you watched those kind of debates that led up to it, but really didn't follow anything on a daily basis, was too consumed with sports and other things in my life. And then really when I started with the college Republicans and started to become an active member, that's really when I started to pay attention more to the daily happenings of politics.
I I see. So I I guess now you mentioned to me in you mentioned to me over the phone that you're writing a book right now, and we'll get to that a little bit later in the interview. But what are the Ohio College Republicans Federation? What
Well,
does your
basically,
organization do?
basically, we're an off branch of the mainstream Republican Party. We try to partner with local conservative candidates as well as federal candidates in order to help them get elected. But ultimately, our goal is to reach out to college students and try to get as many college students to um, realize the conservative message and to embrace it. And quite frankly, we're not doing that great of a job. The odds are really stacked up against us, and so we're trying, moving into the future, some new techniques and messaging ideas to try to reverse that trend.
Now, I'm curious. What don't you think is working, and why?
Well, I think the first thing is messaging, which the GOP and both the College Republican National Committee have admitted. Um, More specifically, social media with Facebook and Twitter, and 4 years from now, when we have another presidential election, who knows what'll be the really popular social media site. I think when you look at how both candidates approach social media, Barack Obama really approached it in the matter of as a way to not only increase his following, but to increase the number of volunteers that were involved with his campaign, whereas Mitt Romney really just tried to get a certain message out there to followers and really didn't even do that good of a job because he didn't have that many followers. And studies and stats have proven that almost 90% of those that are on social media sites are likely to vote and are registered to vote. So that means that a vast majority, almost all social media users are paying attention in some form to politics. So it really is free exposure to candidates. And we've seen in the past that the Democrats have done a lot better job than the Republicans have at utilizing it.
See, folks, I'm not the only one who's telling you all to get involved with social media.
Yeah.
My audience, some of my fans always give me grief about how obsessed I am over the social media thing. So it's kind of a relief to know that I'm not the only one bitching about how conservative need to get involved more with social media. So.
No, certainly, yeah. Coming here and phasing out of radio and television, more individuals are moving towards the internet. I think you're really going to see, especially in the next coming elections, social media it's already taken off, but it's even going to play a much larger role, not only in courting voters to the message that these individuals have, but as far as the overall campaign dynamic, recruiting volunteers and raising money. Those websites will really come to the forefront.
I see. Now, we talked a lot about social media in both this conversation and in our previous phone conversation. But what other aspects, in your opinion, why does the left dominate the influence over our generation, the millennial generation?
Well, it comes down to two things. It comes down to the policies they're pushing, number one, and number two, the fact that they just try more. I cite in my book multiple examples of the Republican Party just not trying with this generation. And the easiest way to really reach out to youth voters is through campaign rallies and personal contact with these individuals. And as we've seen, especially in this past election, Mitt Romney and Paul Ryan rarely held campaign rallies on college campuses. Barack Obama, when he launched his 2012 reelection campaign, did it at a college campus here in Ohio State University, and had a campaign rally of almost 20,000 individuals that filled their arena. And on top of that, you saw that Barack Obama consistently met with Democrats, young Democrats, in order to try to inspire them to volunteer more and to encourage their efforts, whereas Mitt Romney really kind of looked down upon young Americans to the fact that there really was no certain outreach. It was a one-size-fits-all campaign message. And when it comes to millennials, especially this generation, we're completely different than generations of the past, and therefore we warrant a new type of campaign message.
Why do you think that the Republicans are so bad at communicating with us? Do they just not like us as a generation? Do they just not think we're that important, or what's the issue? I mean, obviously they don't. Obviously, I agree with you that they don't try hard enough, but at this point in the game, I would think that they should have woken up after the 2008 election, and they should have seen that, oh wow, we messed up big time with the younger generation. Why have they never made that connection, though, do you think? It's honestly perplexing to me.
Well, I mean, it starts with social media, and then you jump into really the heart of the issue, which is the difference in policies. The millennial generation is the most diverse generation ever, and with that, it's extremely hard for the Republican Party to cater to what their traditional demographic, the white Caucasian demographic. In the millennial generation, 18% of it is made up of Hispanic Americans with 14% of African Americans. And that's a huge increase from demographics of the past. So really, when you look at issues such as immigration, and you look at these social issues, there's really not a connection from the Republican standpoint to what the millennials believe. And what's even worse is that the Republicans refuse to have a conversation with those individuals, which are mostly millennials, that don't agree with those policies. There's no compromise whatsoever. You see a lot of mainstream older Republicans say we don't want to compromise on our values, our virtues, which is fine. But in the end, you're going to sacrifice nearly a whole generation. Multiple studies in the past have cited that once individuals identify themselves either as a liberal or a conservative, they're going to carry that party makeup with them for the rest of their life, most likely. And I think as we go along here and we waste more and more years with trying to court these voters, it's going to be extremely hard to win national elections in the future.
I see. Now, I'm going to go a little bit off the beaten path here in terms of interviewing, but you and I were talking about Occupy Wall Street. And I actually, based on what I've heard about you and based on our last couple conversations, you seem to really understand how this generation works in terms of the mindset, more so than even I do on some level. But so like one path I kind of want to go down. Do you think that the trophy generation mentality and everyone's a winner and the whole liberal hijacking of the school system in the 80s and 90s had anything to do with why our generation is so liberal?
Oh, yeah. I think it has almost everything to do with it. Like I said, you start with the mentality when many millennials were born that we were kind of put on this golden pedestal. We were told that we were going to be very successful when we grew older. We played sports such as we had t-ball games where no one kept score because we didn't want to hurt anyone's feelings. We went into grade school where basically we have a socialist public school system, and the fact that we all conform to uniform standards. We're really not taught to think for ourselves. And so when many millennials go away to college and they separate from their parents and they're forced to think for themselves, they're really unable to. They sit in a classroom and they're told by a professor what to think, and because they don't have that previous knowledge, they do believe that mentality, and most likely it's a liberal ideology. So I think from the very beginning, the Republican Party is put at a disadvantage because of the way that millennials have been raised, and that makes this problem even more significant, and it makes the need to kind of to meet this generation halfway, so to speak, even more important in order to capture their vote in the near future.
And then the other thing is, I tend to think that this trophy generation thing, I mean, I get pretty riled up about the trophy generation, Michael, and the whole mentality. But the other thing is, I think that this has to do a lot with Occupy Wall Street, and people don't realize this. But well, first of all, before I put words in your mouth, what are your thoughts on Occupy Wall Street, basically as a group?
Well, I think when you see that movement and the majority of those individuals that make it up are millennials, the problem with it is that many individuals that were partaking in it, because the movement is for the most part dead, the individuals that were partaking in it had a total misconception of what the American ideal of capitalism is. And was for the last 200 or so years. And I think a prime example of that was in the 2012 election. You saw how Mitt Romney was portrayed as an out-of-touch, rich, greedy individual by the Barack Obama campaign because the company he worked for, Bain Capital, had put several businesses. They were not able to revive them because of the nature of the business they were in, where they would take these businesses that were failing and try to turn them around. But yet the majority of individuals who heard that message just heard the fact that, well, Mitt Romney led these other businesses and out of business, and all the while he profited. And so we see this kind of inequality start to form and start to resonate in the mind of these millennials, and it starts to make sense for them. Well, Republicans must be bad because look at what Mitt Romney does. He puts hardworking middle-class individuals out of work and then gets rich off them. So I think that's where you get that whole 1% perspective, and that's why so many individuals, especially millennials, are passionate that the rich should pay more and that they're not paying their fair share, when in all reality, they're paying more for their fair share, and the more these individuals pay, the more it hurts the middle class in the end.
Right. Now, you brought up Governor Romney, and I don't want to come off as the guy who said I was right about this, but Mitt Romney to me was never the candidate who could reach the millennial generation. I think that in terms of reaching our generation, he was probably the worst possible choice. What do you think about? Well, what did you think of the choice from Mitt Romney, and who would you have picked for the nomination if you had?
Well, I think you're exactly right, and I think it comes down to more of a question on what do the Republicans want out of a candidate, especially in 2012. Pretty much every political pundit out there said, well, the Republicans need to nominate a candidate that can win. That's all they were concerned about. Who can win? Who can outraise President Obama? Who has the ability to capture the independent vote, and so on and so forth. But really, what we forgot about was which candidates can lead. And that's really what not only the millennial generation is looking for, but what most Americans are looking for. Look at Barack Obama in 2008. Running against Hillary Clinton for the Democratic primary. He was pretty much a nobody by national political standpoint. He didn't have the fundraising capabilities that Hillary Clinton had, but yet he had a strong vision, and he had the perceived leadership that many Democrats wanted to have, and ultimately many Americans wanted to have, and that's why he got elected. And I think it's the way Barack Obama got elected in 2008 and then again in 2012 will forever change the way that campaigns are run. It shows that if you have a positive message, if you have the ability to reach across different demographic lines, then it doesn't matter how much money you can raise, that these super PACs will come to your aid and really give you the best chance at getting your message out and ultimately winning. Now, as far as which candidate I think was the best for the Republican nomination, I really supported Rick Santorum because of the way he stuck to his hardline conservative principles. But I really don't know. Knowing the way and seeing the way that the Republicans ran their 2012 campaign, I don't think any candidate could have beat Barack Obama, because ultimately the way the party portrayed or was going to portray, and whoever their candidate was and that won the nomination, I really think that they handicapped that candidate because they made them put their views so far to the right, to the point that they couldn't really reach out to independents and especially millennials.
So basically what you're saying is no matter who the nominee would have been, in terms of reaching the millennials, the conservative movement would have been screwed.
Exactly, because messaging only goes so far. you have to believe in certain policies in order to court a certain demographic. And that's why really what the GOP is trying to do now, and the College Republican National Committee, they're just talking about the messaging aspect. We need to change our messaging and accept social media and other sites. Well, that's great, but that only goes so far. And that goes back to the fact that you have to pair messaging along with policies, and then you can start to see change in a demographic. But until that happens, it's going to be extremely hard.
So let me ask you this, because your answer there was interesting to me, and I didn't really consider that none of the candidates would have been able to reach the millennials. So, are there any candidates out there, or no, not candidates? Is there anyone out there who would have been able to be the leader for the millennial, that the millennial generation wants, that you can think of? Or let me ask this a different way. What does the GOP need to do in order to reach millennials? What do they need to find in a candidate, more specifically?
I think they need to find a candidate that is not going to try to scare a certain generation into voting for him, very similar to what Mitt Romney did in 2012, where he said, really, you should vote against Barack Obama, not so much vote for me, when he was trying to display his economic message. But I think moving forward, the GOP needs to look for a candidate that is a little more to center on some of the social issues, such as immigration reform, and an individual that is willing to concede not funding the Defense Department for as much as what they do. Because really, millennials say, first of all, we don't trust politicians to begin with, because the majority of the time we're seeing that a lot of politicians are corrupt, and that they're not personable, so to speak. So millennials want to see, how do issues affect me personally? And the issues that they see that are affecting them are the social issues such as immigration, such as gay marriage. When you look at these issues, you can say Republicans oppose gay marriage, Democrats support it. Republicans oppose illegal immigration, Democrats support it. You look at abortion, Republicans oppose abortion, most Democrats support it. There are clear distinctions between those issues. When you look at economic issues, there's so many stats that can be misconstrued that it's really a he says, she says argument if you don't have a good understanding of how the free market system works, and by and large, many millennials don't. So it all goes back in my mind to social issues. It goes back to the fact that these Republican candidates need to at least try to meet millennials somewhere in the middle on these issues. Maybe not legalize gay marriage, but maybe say, what is the role, or what is the government's role in marriage anyways? Should we take all tax incentives out of marriage? And when you look at immigration, you can say, well, maybe we can have amnesty, and similar to what Senator Rubio is saying now, but first we have to have a secure southern border and northern border, speaking on that end. So I think that there's ways to approach these issues, but we have to do it in a logical standpoint, looking at both sides, both the right and the center's arguments on these issues, and then we can really start to see some change from the millennial generation voting for Republican candidates.
Well, one area where I do think I will disagree with you a little bit, I don't necessarily think that conservatives need to moderate their opinions or their viewpoints. I don't think conservative candidates need to do that. However, I do think that they need to moderate the way they say things, if that makes any sense, because I am avidly against abortion and completely almost every form. However, I've taken time to explain on my show as to why that is. And one of the things that I don't think a lot of Republicans do is I don't think they explain their positions very well at all, or why they think what they think. They just state their viewpoint and expect a lot of people to understand what their viewpoint is, but they don't really go into the why. I don't know if that makes any sense.
No, I think it makes a lot of sense, and especially when you talk about economic issues. Again, revert back to 2012. If Mitt Romney would have taken the time to really hammer home the point that, well, if we keep raising taxes and keep raising these business regulations and making them more strict, then in the end, this will adversely affect the job seekers. This will make it harder for businesses to hire middle-class individuals, and will ultimately hurt the economy more than help the economy. And that's, I think, what again, going back to messaging that the Republican Party has to put into frame. From now on, when you address the millennial generation, you have to say, well, how will this hurt you down the line? And paint a picture for them. Well, this is what you can do. This is what this generation can be. You can be, the most technologically advanced generation. You can be rich and successful. But if you continue to put candidates in office that advocate for these higher taxes and for these higher business regulations, then ultimately you're going to be hurting your chances at achieving those dreams, that American dream, down the road. So if you put it into that perspective, if you show them their potential, but then show them the problem, I think that they themselves will be able to interpret, well, maybe this isn't the best style of government for me. Maybe a smaller, limited, more conservative style of government will ultimately be a more successful one in the future.
All right. Well, I do completely agree with you on that. Now, one other thing, I want to give you a little bit of a chance. You mentioned that you have a book that you're working on, and I know you wanted to mention that a little bit. So tell us what your book is about and whatnot.
Yeah, the book is it's called Making Conservatism Cool. The first write is done of the book. Hopefully it should be published next fall before the midterm elections. Really, I was inspired to write it. I want to say November 7th or November 8th. I said, man, I need to do something after the election loss. I was so devastated. I could not believe that this generation fell for the trap that Barack Obama had set them up for. And the book really addresses two key points. It looks at, first, what is the millennial generation? Who are we? What is our value system, and what do we look like as far as demographic-wise? And why do we vote a certain way? And the second part really looks at ways that the Republican Party can start to reform issues. I mentioned gay marriage. Getting the government out of gay marriage is one point that I make. On illegal immigration, really, I back the Gang of Eight proposal. I'm saying that immigration really needs to be considered a national security issue more than an amnesty issue first. And then I look at an issue that's not really talked about, the death penalty, how conservatives can really take a stand on that issue and really be at the forefront of trying to abolish the death penalty, because it's totally economically infeasible. It's an economic detriment to many states, California, for example. And then I look at the role of defense. How much is too much defense? Do we need to continue to increase our defense budget, or should that be the first thing to cut? Because many millennials believe that the Defense Department is too big. So I look at those issues, and then I also look at issues such as campaign solutions for the future, using social media, having candidates try to court millennial voters on more of a personal level and tailoring their campaigns to millennials. And really, I hope that the book coming from a millennial will be a way for the mainstream party, those that are the old white demographic, to really say this is what the millennials believe, and maybe we can start to listen to them in the future and try to solve the problem.
Well, I want you to do something for me. When the book is published or ready to come out, I want you to be able to come back on this program and promote the book when it's closer to coming on, because Jason and I were talking and last night, and we think that what you're doing will help us tremendously. And when you first mentioned the idea of the book, I've been working on books pretty similar to what you've got going, but nothing as far in detail as to what you're working on. And so I'd like to invite you again onto the program when it's near completion. So when do you think it'll be out more specifically? Do you have
right now I'm in the process of working with a couple different publishing houses to see which publishing house can give me the ability to have the greatest impact, to produce the most publications of the book and get it as far a reach as possible. But definitely shooting for right before the midterm election, so late summer next year, to really have a maximum impact so that Republicans can actually use some of these campaign strategies that I talk about in the book, and they can put that into practice and use it in an actual campaign, which I think is the ultimate purpose of the book. It's not just for someone to read it and say, oh, that's a good idea. The purpose of the book is to demand action, and the time for action is now, and hopefully people will take that to heart.
So my understanding, so it sounds to me like the book is more targeted at the older generation of conservatives.
Yes. I try to throw in some stuff that relates to millennials,
Sure.
Examples from my life about what it's like to be a millennial and a conservative. But by and large, the problem remains with those that are older. We can talk to millennials as much as we want, but until there is some sort of understanding from older generations about what what millennials are all about, we will never be able to coincide together as far as Republican politics. So that, I believe, is the first part of solving the problem. The second part is obviously educating millennials. But right now, I believe that the part that I'm trying to tackle, the part of giving those that are older and members of the Republican Party an understanding of what millennials are all about, is the first key to addressing the problem.
All right. Well, that sounds good. I can't wait to read the book. Real quick before I stop this interview and let you go, where can my audience find you? Should anyone want to get into contact with you?
Well, you can always email me. I have an email with the Ohio College Republican Federation, mgarcar@ohiocr.com. And right now we are working on ways to work with several college campuses, not even in the state of Ohio. We're working very closely with Virginia in their upcoming governor's race, and also in Massachusetts with their special election. We're working with college campuses really around the country at this point. You can follow me on Twitter at Mike Garcar, G as in George, ARCAR 28, and on Facebook at Mike Garcar. I try to post my political perceptions and opinions, and like I said, really the ultimate goal of this is to give both millennials and, if you want to call them Generation X, Generation Y members, an understanding of what we're all about, because we are so unique and so diverse. And because of that, we demand attention. And hopefully in the near future, there will be a mutual understanding between generations, and we can turn this problem into an asset for the Republican Party.
Michael Garcar, thank you for coming in, sir.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
All right, thank you. We'll be right back, folks.